Hey.
Hello.
Hey, Kenny.
How are you?
Good. It's a beautiful day.
Yep. Where are you?
I'm okay. Move a little closer.
Where are you?
I'm in Tappan in my studio, Oak Tree Road, just
There's not a
outside
terribly
New
good
York.
connection to audio.
Huh?
I can't really hear you terribly well.
Okay. Better now?
Yes.
Okay, I'll come up closer then.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's a bad connection on the phone.
I don't know.
Lift it up.
Lift it up.
Yeah, because the microphone's.
How's this?
I think maybe it's the connection.
Okay. It's the connection. Oh, this is real shit.
I'm so bad. This is only the second time I've ever done this, so it took me 5 minutes just to get a connection myself.
Okay.
No. I'm back.
Any better?
Where did you say you were? Let's test it out. Bye.
Tappan, outside New York City.
I see. Okay. Now I hear you, but it's not a best connection.
Yeah. All right. She's going to put it on Wi-Fi. We'll see what happens.
Okay. Okay. And that's where you live. You live in New York now. Nope, you're gone. Come back.
Any good?
Yeah. I
Any
don't know if
good?
people can't hear me. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah. How is this any good?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. All
So
right.
you live in New York now.
I lived in New York for 40 years.
But,
And I live
but I
in
thought
New York now, yeah.
I thought your son was going to school in the UK.
No. No, I have flights of fancy. And I toyed with the idea, because here's the thing. I'm very disturbed by gun violence in America. And when I was a child, I pushed the limits of authority as far as and as hard as I could. So I expect that to be the job of a teenager. I mean, that's what they're supposed to do. But in America, you're likely to get shot if you do that. So I think when he's a teenager, I don't want him to be at school here. That's the thing.
Gotcha.
But he's at school in New York until he's 14, and then we'll see what happens. But I did a load of paintings based on this, ghost paintings based on this idea of gun violence in America, and I'm just not used to it. I'm very disturbed by it.
It's funny because I lived for 15 years in London, and I have to say I moved back to New York City last year, and I find the crime in London pretty much almost like petty crime is worse in London today than it is in New York City, I find.
It's far worse.
Yeah.
Because they're fearless.
Yeah.
Well, that's the downside of it. When I grew up in London, and I was in a street gang, and I was a kind of juvenile delinquent, and we would argue with the police. Here you don't argue with the police. They repeat something 3 times, and then if you don't do it, you either get arrested or you get shot if you try and run away. So it's a question of which one you like. But of course, London has become very disturbing in the sense of low-level violence,
Yeah.
and they have zero respect for private property.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, I feel they're very disenfranchised and they just feel that there's no hope in terms of opportunities. So they really, like you said, they're fearless about not caring.
Yeah, well, there's a sort of cynicism, a kind of disrespect for the law, a sense of entitlement, and and definitely a disenchantment. Yeah, you know, I know this sounds a little odd to say,
I'm
but
sorry? Say that again?
it might sound a little odd to say this in context, but the UK is 13% forested,
Mm.
and France is 30% forested.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's no nature left.
Yeah.
You got 64 million people on that little island, and where they're gonna go? What are they gonna do? You know, the Industrial Revolution ate everything.
Yeah. I mean, we can get into this whole situation there, but let's get into the art stuff.
Okay.
So I know, like, I wrote a review of this documentary, and I know you were annoyed, and I'm sorry.
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
I didn't read it
Okay.
because I'm too busy reading Wings of Fire.
Okay.
It's a kid's book.
Oh, good.
I read kids' books. I
Really?
don't read art criticism. Well, when you have a kid, you have to read kids' books.
Yeah.
So I read every night. I'm reading Wings of Fire. But anyway, people told me about it. But you know, really, you were talking about the film. And a film is a person's selectivity. I think you were right in some ways. You know, it was like a TV reality show. What it doesn't show is that 50% of my time is spent at home doing homeschooling. You know, we take it in turns. We do homeschooling every day.
So you did homeschooling before the COVID crisis?
No, he was at Blue Rock up the road, but every day one of us picks him up, takes him to school. I take him to school, and he's the DJ in the car. And then when I bring him home, we you know, we play together. So I'm with my kid every other day, and that's not in the film. But so the film, or anybody who makes a film, is making an artwork. So you're criticizing his artwork, not my artwork.
No, I wasn't. I never criticized the artwork per se. I was just being a little bit satirical about some of the other elements.
Well, the film is outrageous.
Were you not happy with it?
Well, I kind of think that, well, let's talk about my self-regard. And I have high self-regard. I was thinking about this, you know, you're right. I have high self-regard. But when I grew up, when I was a tiny child, my dad was in prison. They were deserters from the war. We were on the run. That's how I started my life. I started my life really on the edges of starvation, and we were homeless 50% of the time. Now, to get from that, to get to where I am, look at my beautiful studio in Tapan.
Well,
you know, you've got to have some self-regard.
sure.
I would have thought. And I don't object to that. I find myself somewhat ridiculous on film, or expanded. I think I have an expanded personality. But other people do too. Other people that have come from extreme poverty and achieve something, regardless of how one views what I've achieved. I achieved something, obviously. And they're going to have personalities that are, in a sense, outsized. If I didn't, I'd be working in a barber shop in Dublin, cutting your hair, by the way.
There's
You
not
have
much.
nice hair. It's better than mine.
Okay, so let's talk about a few different things. Well, in the film, you said that art comes out of unhappiness. Do you still believe that? Because I know that you suffered the loss of a child, and I suffered the loss of a child only a year ago, and it's pretty much, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy, and it's pretty much ruined my life or any sense that I have of ever achieving anything that resembles happiness or contentment. It doesn't stop my work, but I just have other goals besides contentment. So are you still unhappy? You seem to be at full swing in your studio and your exhibition schedule. Do you still believe that art comes out of such unhappiness?
Well, I think mine does. Mine came out of ruination. And the only person who's been to university in my entire extended family, including all my aunts, all my uncles, etc., is me. And something propelled me, and I do think it was a sense of being damaged and suffering early on, being criminalized as we were, and in my sense, in my life, I think it's a kind of corrective. Now, it's very interesting about the loss of a child. I mean, it's a difficult subject for you and I to discuss, of course, in public, but we are bonded by this. And, you know, I thought that I had a great deal of empathy for you when I heard about this. I thought it was an absolutely terrible thing. And it never gets better. You can't do anything but recognize the awesomeness of it. And I remember in my life, I was making paintings in the early 80s that were very much based on trying to overcome the desert left to abstract painting by minimalism, which was always based on reductivism. And the more reductive it was, the more noble it was. I was trying to fill it up again by adding color and surface, collision, relationship, metaphor, breaking the rectangle, etc., adding inserts. And I noticed that in 1983, when my son died, the lights went down. It's as if half the lights were turned off. And I made for decades very dark, heavy, brooding paintings. You know, I've got another son now. Finally, I've forgiven myself enough to make another son, and he's 11. He was 11 on Saturday.
Oh, great.
We had his birthday party here in the Orchard, which is my attempt to make a Giverny here. And I think that as life goes on, you know, things change, of course. Bob Dylan says you're a different person every 7 years. Maybe he's right. I don't know.
How old are you?
74 or 47, whichever you like more.
58 going on 12.
That's good, though.
Yeah. But so you said before, like, you need a battle to paint. And I understand the loss that we both suffered. But things have been going so well in your career. What's your battle besides me or some of the critics that you don't like, which we don't have to get into right this second?
No, well, I think it's very good for an artist to have resistance, because if you don't have resistance and you have universal acceptance, not many artists do, of course, you're in danger of becoming a salon artist. So I think it's good to have battles. You know, I remember once someone told me that the director of the museum in Zurich some years ago, as part of a gift, had turned down 13 Picassos. So everybody has it. Everybody has their detractors, and one needs one's detractors anyway.
Yeah.
And it's fun too. So I don't have the number of maybe the number of detractors that I used to have. That's become less, I think, and maybe that happens with age. I don't know. The most revered abstract painter in the world right now, obviously, is Gerhard Richter, but he's very senior. So maybe when you get older, people don't want to beat you up so much because they feel a little more pity for you.
Wait, I'm pitying myself. You've said before that you think that you're the greatest living abstractionist. And do you always think so? Do you think of artists like, I mean, I guess it's like, I think in terms of the art market, it's like a contact sport. But do you always think in such competitive terms like that?
No, I'm not competitive at all.
All that fighting and boxing and karate? No?
Well, you know, that's really interesting, that karate thing. When I came to New York, you know, after about 3 months, I found New York to be so stressful. People were so brutal. You know, you go in a store and you'd ask for something, and in London you say please, or can I have, or in Spain you say, you know, puedo tener un, whatever, you know, and they would say, what else? Or they would say, he's an asshole, or you're an asshole, like this. I couldn't understand this at first. It was so collisional. And I found I had hemorrhoids. Within about 3 months, I felt like a middle-aged taxi driver. And I went to a gym, an Apple gym. And a guy walked past me, a little guy, and I just felt something from him. And somebody said, oh, he's doing free karate lessons. You can study with him. And it fascinated me because it's intellectual. You know, you have to learn Japanese. I can count in Japanese, not that it's any use except when I go to Tokyo, but it exercises the mind and the body, and it also made me very relaxed. Here's another thing, though, that I think was very important about it. At the time, my work was a lot more mental and linear, and I was trying to put some kind of body into my painting. I was trying to unify the line or the structure with a sense of experience, make it experiential, physically direct, and doing a kind of Zen-like sport helped me tremendously in that. But after a while, I found it too martial. You know, it is martial arts. So it is somewhat militaristic. And I got fed up with that.
Just a quick diversion, because I don't want to keep dwelling on outside of art stuff. But you said you were over in New York City, and I know you've mentioned guns and crime. But since I moved back here a year ago, I must say I'm in heaven. And like even reading the press about this whole crisis, you would think that people are keeling over and dying in the streets of New York, and it's absolutely not the case. New York is a great city, and it's a beautiful place to be right now, despite all of the tragedy that we're surrounded by. But why are you over? Do you not spend time in New York, or did you have a bad experience? Just
what, in the city?
What?
I mean, in the city?
Yes, because I just saw a quote, maybe it was in the film, that you said you're over in New York City.
Oh, I'm, yeah, I can't remember in what context I said that, because there were a lot of leading questions in the film, because he was trying to get me to say things that were provocative, and he was very successful. So I think that New York is very difficult as a creative center. Maybe it's easier for you, or as a commentator, it could be absolutely fascinating. I understand that. But when you have mega galleries within half a mile of your studio, and you're working in relation to that market, and the market is so closed down, I find it very unhealthy. So I got fed up with it. I got fed up with that relationship.
I also make a bit of art, but I don't have any problems with galleries right now at this stage of my life. But maybe that time will come. A few more. What about other artists? Like, do you collect the work of your contemporaries? How do you relate to other living artists? Are there a couple of names that pop to mind of things that you like, or collect, or trade, or whatever?
Yeah, I wanted to do a show with Gunter Ferg, who was a friend of mine. We talked in the academy in Munich. And, he's a wonderful guy, very generous of spirit, quite misunderstood. One day he walked into the academy, and I was standing in the line. We were giving out prizes, and he had a big cup. Half of it was vodka, of course. The other half was tea. So it was tea in disguise. And he walked up behind me and slapped me right in the ass. And it's very difficult to shock me. So I just turned around and said, "Hey, how you doing?" Well, by a diabolical coincidence, 3 weeks later, I found myself standing behind him in the line as we were giving out the diplomas. And I slapped him in the ass. And he looked around with an expression of incomprehension on his face, because he couldn't remember, you see, because he was drunk.
Right. He's also very dead. What about living artists?
Oh, he's only just dead.
No, but what about okay, so if
what about Renee Stout?
Sorry?
What about Renee Stout? She's my friend in DC. She's a wonderful painter.
Don't know her work.
I gave her a show on 17th Street. And that was about a year ago. Maybe it was 2 years ago. Anyway, we've written an essay on each other's work for the Phillips collection.
Good question. So I really like the way your work has opened up recently and become a lot looser in terms of formally and structurally. And how do you feel about, the work of the painter Mary Heilman and Stanley Whitney? Do you have any regards to their works?
I think they're good. Why not? I think you own. How many paintings by Heilman do you own?
Me? Not enough.
Someone told me it was 18.
Sorry?
Someone told me it was 18.
I wish. No,
I was going to suggest you had a little museum. You could open a little museum for her and charge admission.
I just love her as a person, and her art.
Yeah.
F3. Actually, that's a good question. That's another question. But you didn't. Do you collect? Do you have any Gunter Ford works? No,
because I never quite got around to it. I gave him a work, and he gave me a necktie.
That's a good deal. I have a few neckties. What about a little work for me?
Well, you could give me your hair.
Okay.
Because my hair fell out, and I was extraordinarily good looking before it happened. And now
I have so many more questions.
I need somebody's hair.
Now your hair is going. I can ask a really tacky, stupid question. Should I go there first?
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned how good looking you are and the loss of your hair. What's your favorite body part now that's still with you?
Oh, my favorite body part is, I'll show it to you.
Oh, God. Go ahead.
It won't be obscene.
Sorry?
It won't be obscene.
Okay.
This is my favorite body part.
What is that, your elbow? Your arm.
No, that's my tattoo.
Oh, what is it of? Oh, I can't see.
First abstract art. It's 4,000 years old. Look.
Oh, wow. Really? And where did it derive from?
It's Irish, which is probably Viking,
Yeah.
but it means endless regeneration.
You mentioned the museum for Mary Heilman. I have a collection of art and I make art, and when I croak, I don't care if my kids put it up, sell it all before my body gets cold. I know that you maintained a large collection of your own pieces, and do you ever think, what's your intent to do with your work when you're no longer with us?
Well, when I'm no longer with you, it's not my intention to own my work.
Are you going to give it away?
And yeah, no, I'm not going to build a pyramid and take it with me
Yeah.
in my travels. So
Get buried with it.
yeah, I mean, I give it away. I don't want it. I don't even want it now. But I keep it to make exhibitions, you know, and I have a lot of exhibitions because I'm invited to have exhibitions. So it's great to have all these paintings, and I like to be able to do it without effort, without having to ask somebody. You know, and I don't even really like selling my paintings that much. You know, I've never really engaged with the market in a way that worries me, or in a neurotic way. I've always shown with smaller galleries.
Now you're bringing up a whole can of other worms for me to start to wrestle.
Well, I've never been with one of these mega galleries like Pace or Gagosian or Hauser.
Have you had offers from them?
Well, of course,
But you showed with Mnuchin Gallery.
Yeah. Now, here's the thing about Mnuchin Gallery. Mnuchin Gallery is kind of it's an oddball gallery. It's on one hand, it's very exclusive, and on the other hand, they have this very eccentric program. Now, if I was going to do an artist talk, you asked me about other artists. I would do a talk with the other most difficult artist in New York, besides myself, which is David Hammonds.
Yeah.
Who I like very much as a personality. I've never talked to him, but I think that with both of us, there's a very strong sense of resistance to caving in to the market, to being consumed by it or being owned by it. I don't believe in the protection of a mega gallery. I'd rather be on my own and have my independence, be able to show when I want to show,
What about
not be managed.
What happened with Harry Blaine? I'd be remiss not to ask. I know that he owed you some money or something like that.
Well, he forgot to pay me.
And what's the status of that?
Well, I think there's a long line of people who tried to get money out of him. And of course, I think that's futile. But, you know, I've handed it over to a lawyer. It's without effort. We did, by the way, manage to get my friend John Schneider's work out of the gallery for him. You know, that's a friend of mine.
I see. I don't know him.
John Schneider.
Oh yeah, I do know her work. Yeah.
And in fact, I've written an essay on her work.
Nice.
It's going to be published when she has a show in Canada Gallery. I'll give a little plug for Joan. Hi, Joan.
I'm a fan of her work, so I'm looking forward to see it.
Yeah. So, we got her workout.
Oh, great.
Oscar and I got her workout because she was at a great
She's number one.
disadvantage. What?
What's that?
She was at a massive disadvantage.
I can imagine.
Well, there she is. She's in New York. There's a guy in London with her work. So Oscar got it out for her.
Oh, good.
And, you know, and I communicate with Joan. I was looking at her paintings when I was in Harvard in 1972. It must be the year of your birth.
61.
61. Oh, you are an old geezer. Okay. So
Don't remind me. With hair.
So I was fascinated by her work, the way that the marks would hang independently on a rectangle, on a space, a receptive anonymous space, and I thought that was very interesting in a kind of existential sense. They weren't trying to make relationships; they were just hanging around independently on this surface, and they looked a little neon.
Mm-hmm. Back to the market for a second. Your auction record is $1.76 million. What are your thoughts about that? And have you ever sold anything of yours at auction, or how does that? Do you think about that? Do you pay attention to that? Do you get pissed off from people when you see works that you know who the previous owner was show up at auction?
No, I never do. I really don't give a shit. Look, if somebody goes into the secondary market or takes advantage of the secondary market, then they are invited to avail themselves of the secondary market, which is a very obtuse way of saying it cannot come back to the primary market. Not mine, anyway.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
Sure.
I don't have anything against them. I think it's all right. They can do it or not do it. They can keep the work or not keep the work. I personally have never sold anything. You know, all the work that I own by friends and colleagues, like my painting that I had of Rene, I've just given it to the Phillips. So for me, art is something special, something sacred. So I wouldn't sell it. But I understand that there's this dreadful, obscene art machine now. They think there's some kind of an industry, which I detest.
But you must like when your work sells well or sells for high prices.
I don't know. I mean,
As Gerhard Richter said that any idiot that pays $20 million for a painting is indefensible, and yet he said it's better than the alternative, which is not having a market and not selling.
well, I've had it both ways, of course. You know, when I was first in New York, I was making my black paintings before I made my kick-ass breakthrough paintings, which influenced a lot of other people.
Okay.
Before I did that, I couldn't give them away. But once I made paintings like Backs and Fronts, where I smashed everything together, I couldn't fight them off. You know, in 1982, when I showed that painting, 1983, when I showed at the MoMA, I had Tiger in that show. The McKees used to joke that they should have a watch line for me, because I had a waiting list of something like 60 people from being virtually homeless. So,
Yeah.
yeah, go on.
Oh, no, go ahead.
So I also must say, when I was making my paintings and I was working, building lofts, which was very beautiful as an experience, I've written on that, you know, framing out lofts and watching all this dust, New York dust, float around in these structures before the walls were lined with the sheetrock. It's very beautiful. It's like making in situational sculpture. And I got a lot of my ideas from that, you know, particularly the cutouts and the windows and the mismatching of things. I got from all that construction.
Yeah. What about like? There's been so much commercialization in the contemporary art world in the last 20 years. Lots of artists are designing products, from Jeff Koons to younger artists, even bags and blah blah. And has anyone ever approached you about doing fashion or applying some of your works compositionally to something outside of canvas, to something more commercial?
Well, they do it anyway, because my paintings are in the vernacular.
Yeah.
I've shown all over the world. And I mean, in China, my work has been reproduced everywhere. So it's already been absorbed into fashion. But that's not my job, and it's not my interest. And also, I don't feel that I own it. I don't own these images. They're part of the culture. Now, I've got ideas from other people, and I know plenty of people have got ideas from me, and that's the way it works. Nobody owns anything. It's all right. But it's not an area that I have any interest in. But I like doing iPhone drawings.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever shown any of those, like Hockney does quite often these days?
Yeah, I showed some in Germany, in a museum in Karlsruhe. I do them on the airplane. You know what I like about them is that I can't really see them because my finger's bigger than the drawing, and I'm doing the drawing on the phone on which we're talking, so I can't really see exactly what I'm getting, and they're quite beautiful.
Yeah. All right, I'll ask another annoying question because I'm just annoying. You mentioned an airplane. You were depicted in that film on a private plane regularly, and I have nothing against capitalism and people having the wherewithal to fly around in planes. And you have your own plane? You said
No, I think you might have muddled me up with Richard Prince. He's got his own plane.
Well,
But
I mean, I think I just heard that. I mean, Christopher Wolf flies around on a plane, and Rudolf Stengo, Gagosian. There's nothing wrong with it. I don't say it in
well,
a judgmental way.
no, there is actually something wrong with it because it's 10 times as dirty. But those statistics are based on these people that fly around in mid-sized jets with their dogs and, you know, maybe one friend. But if you have, like we did in the film, a fully loaded light jet with a group of 7 people, that's okay. And that's actually what we did. We went from Moscow to St. Petersburg because I had a big exhibition in Moscow, and then we had to go to St. Petersburg, and the only way to get there on time was in that jet. So that's what we did.
So it's not yours because in the film you said you've gone from Inchicore to your own private plane, whatever is next. You should paint it if it's your plane. You should paint it in stripes. Would be quite cool.
Now, I said something like that, but again, you know, the world is rife with misquotes. I said something like, I went from Inchicore to flying around in a private jet. It was a joke.
Okay.
And yeah, I was in a private jet.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I'm not passing that. I'm not one to judge upon it. I may dress homeless, but I like a nice hotel, and I'm not.
Well, I don't want a plane.
Yeah.
You know, my friend Bono has a plane, but of course he's in a rock band, so they have to fly around all over the place. But I am very conscious environmentally. I mean, just to touch on a serious note, I am extremely rigorous with the environment.
That you're the bricklayer of the soul. What does that mean?
I thought it was a beautiful metaphor. Hey, he's one of the most successful metaphor makers in the world.
Certainly is.
So what he's saying is, it's on the one hand, this is the way I read it. So on the one hand, it's proletariat, because I always paint very simple things. I always paint stripes, basically, and I have been doing for a very long time. And I paint them soulfully, and which is what I think what he's getting at. And what I wanted to do, to revert back to 1980, is transform abstraction, or bring it into the world of emotion. And that's why I made all those rough, tough, patched together paintings. You get this.
Nobody.
I get these Chinese people calling me every day. I have no clue what they're saying.
You have to block them. It's just like a fishing expedition where they're trying to steal money from you, I think.
But I don't know how to do it. I'm very low tech.
Me too. You barely get the call going.
I have a paintbrush. Look, I'll show you my paintbrushes. You might be interested.
I would love to see your works too. That's cooking in the studio.
Okay, let's go for a little walk around the studio.
Perfect.
So this is what I'm doing right now. These are on metal, I've been painting on metal for quite a while, and I tape that off. So I think in some way my paintings have been influenced by my sculptures of late. So there's a little dance going on between the metal and the paint. Now this is how I start my paintings off. I wouldn't leave a painting like that.
Right, beautiful.
I know that my friend Gunter would, but he was so drunk when he was painting, he used to fall over it. He used to fall down the stairs sometimes. And this is a finished painting in the corner. So what I do is I work them up over time, and however, I always smash things together, which I've been doing since the late 70s.
Are all of those paintings on aluminum that you're showing?
They're all on aluminum, except that little baby over there.
The one on the floor?
Yeah, which is the one that you'd probably like for your hair.
Okay, that's a deal. I'm going to hold you to that. Well, we got to work something out. Come on.
Yeah, look.
So with your sculptures, like I like the stack colored square.
Look at that. What do you think about that?
Oh, some more figurative works.
Yeah, that's called Jack the Wolf. I wrote a kid's story, for my son, and he loved it so much. We illustrated the book together. It's going to be published this year.
That's cool.
I want to show Edward Orby's place out of bits of wood.
I just lost you for a second. Can you just repeat that?
Huh?
I just lost you for a second.
So you see how I made them. I used to find bits of wood and put them together.
Do you back to your sculpture, do you ever think of like Donald Judd's work or Carl Andre's works with those stacks of squares or rectangles?
Well, here's a very interesting thing about Carl, who I think is a wonderful artist. Well, I like them both, what's especially interesting to me about Carl is that he worked as a stevedore down in the docks. So in other words, he did industrial stacking. And I worked in a cardboard factory when I was a teenager, and I stacked cardboard boxes and filled trucks with them. And I think that that's so interesting, that working class proletariat experience in relation to simple stacking or ordering. You know, something very primitive about it, or something industrial about it, which I really like. So my work's always like that. This is, by the way, this is wrapped in felt. You can see inside it if you want.
Good.
For a small charge. It will let you see inside it.
Vito Acconci had the best line about Richard Serra's torqued ellipse spiral.
Yeah.
And he said he loved the work, but he was a little disappointed because by the time he got to the center of the spiral, he would have appreciated finding like a hot dog stand or something, a little reward for his endeavor of circling through the sculpture.
Well, I think it's a nice remark. I know Richard. He's great. You know, I had dinner with him one night.
He's tough like you.
He's tough like me, yeah. He's more violent than me, though. I think he punched Joe Mashek in the face once. This is my orchard.
Oh, wow. Beautiful.
Isn't that nice?
Beautiful.
And there's a sculpture at the end.
I see.
Yeah. So, yeah, I do think about these things. And, of course, all these people are important to me. And, you know, we pass the information on. So it gets paraphrased. I once wrote this little piece about the idea of fold. It's a very humble thing. That when you fold something, you never fold it in quite the same way. And I really think that that describes the evolution of painting, which constantly folds itself in a different way, even though it's not forced. You fold a sheet or a blanket, you never fold it the same, but it seems to produce endless possibilities.
It's
Hey,
funny.
what do you think? How'd you like my sticker?
Let me see. Very nice. There's my painting. Is that my little painting and a sticker? It's funny.
You can have this sticker for free.
I used to work in a shop, and I would have to, in a Benetton shop, and I would have to fold things. I would have to fold them according to a rule on the table. So they were striving for uniformity in terms of the folding. So I'm a pretty accurate refolder. But also, like, it's funny because then I was a lawyer part-time when I was casting around, finding out what I wanted to do. And that was in a way similar to you talking about working in the cardboard shop when I was writing briefs, and now I'm still writing in a similar kind of way, very like for a professional audience, in the way that I did when I was doing that for hire work.
Hey, I wanted to ask you a question.
Please, anything you like. We have a few more minutes, 10 minutes, so before we get cut off by Mark Zuckerberg. So,
do you really think, truly, I know people say things. They say things to be inflammatory because they have to maintain an audience.
Yeah.
Do you really think that George Condo makes shit for rich people?
I think he's very true to himself, and I know that he's been at it for a million years. And he used to live with a friend of mine, Donald Batchelor, when he first started his career, and he would literally just incessantly draw and draw and draw thousands of drawings and then take them around under his arm, trying to get him. I'm not one to judge anybody for doing what they love. And I think that, you know, George has made some great paintings. I've made some passing art pieces poking fun at him or joking at him, but I mean, like, I've made fun of Cause a lot, this other toy designer / artist, and it's nothing against him. I don't begrudge him, and I think that he's obviously wildly intelligent human being and creative. But then again, it's all the idiots in the marketplace that ascribe some value, which is way beyond the value of what I think something like that should sell for. And that's really more the hypocrisy of the marketplace, which is something that I'm more judgmental about. So, I mean, George Condo is a sort of serious guy who's been painting for decades, and I wish him the best. I mean, I think.
Oh, because I thought you said it was shit for rich people.
Um,
Maybe you forgot.
no, I don't forget anything like that.
He can certainly paint.
Yeah, he could certainly paint, and I think he's a great success story. Sometimes I just think there's a lot of them. And again, like it's more like the price that I'm talking about, the content of his work. I mean, I don't know. Sometimes I just feel like people aren't interested in. I mean, art connoisseurs are like something that belong in a vitrine in a natural history museum. People just art is a slow burning process, and so many people just collect names, ticking boxes. And I guess that was more my criticism.
Right.
People that you go to an apartment building in New York City and you can just go from floor to floor and see the same collection. Just like in London, you could see like J. Joplin houses that are filled with the whole stable of White Cube Gallery. And that has nothing to do with the artists or the dealers. It's just a lot of the people in the art world today are in it for other reasons than maybe they were 20 years ago.
Well, that's for sure. When I started out, I was with a wonderful gallery in London, and which spoiled me, of course. And he said to me, "You know what? That I have a number. It's 13." And he wasn't talking about toilets. He was talking about a number of artists in the gallery. 13. Now the galleries have 70.
Well, I think Hauser has 100. So there.
Yeah, I just can't. I can't get involved with this. I can't be a part of this world. I don't understand it. It makes absolutely no sense to me. There's no shape to it anymore. And I used to show with David McKee, you know, and David McKee had a family.
And Renee.
Yeah, and Renee, and they were, you know, great. We used to meet in the apartment after openings, and Stuart Diamond or Catherine Porter was another person I gave an exhibition to in my Chelsea space. She's a wonderful painter. But we used to go there afterwards. It was great, and that's something I understood. But now I don't get it anymore. They're like outlets. They think that art is some kind of an industry, which it's not.
I mean, look, it is what it is, and it's a market that you participate in. So it is an industry, but it should be something more. And again, like, people should do whatever they want. And I make a living selling other people's art because I can't survive on my writing, my teaching, and my own art. So I've bought and sold paintings, and I understand the concept. And I love art, though. I teach fine art at School of Visual Arts and at University of Zurich. And yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with the art industry fundamentally. I just think it's some of the motivations that people get involved for, which are other than loving art. It's all about love and passion. And I'm self-taught in everything I do. And I may piss a lot of people off. I don't mean to. I never do it mean-spirited. I do it because I really just love art. I love it. I share it with my family. It's all I care about, really. And, you know, maybe sometimes I could be a little too critical in revealing some of the machinations of the art world, but really, I think that people appreciate it, and I don't do it in bad faith.
No, and actually, since you've been talking in that way, which has almost a spiritual overtone to it, the letters on the wall behind your head have arranged themselves into a kind of papal cap.
It says honest, because that's really the whole career is about honesty. And I just think that's what I am to a fault, and it gets me in trouble, and people threaten to kill me and hate me and want to fight with me, but I don't make up stuff, and I know I'm complicit, and I know I'm not innocent in terms of getting my hands dirty, because that's how I survive, but I believe
I'm not going to fight with you. In fact, I think the poster proves the power of metaphor.
Yeah.
Because if that poster wasn't a metaphor, you'd be unconscious.
Oh, I'm a black belt in karate. I'm just kidding. I'm a coward unless I'm hiding behind my keyboard.
Well, that's why you've made that poster.
I know
But
you were kicking my ass.
and in the poster, I love the
You on
poster.
that point. That's obvious.
But I just wouldn't be in a defensive posture like this.
Sorry?
I wouldn't be holding my hands defensively because I wouldn't imagine you'd be throwing very much.
I'm going to give you that one.
Maybe some words.
Yeah, otherwise I'm a chicken.
I'm going to take you outside and show you my car before we go.
Full car.
It's a Tesla, you see.
That I don't love so much.
Oh, yeah. Well,
I think that I could tell you that a Tesla does more damage to the environment.
No,
than
that's
a
not
plastic
true.
Mini with a tiny engine. Little teeny car. There's so much plastic and lead in a car like that. I love it. I think it's a cool thing. And Elon Musk is obviously a genius, but.
And you know what happens to the batteries afterwards? They get recycled. They go into solar energy. So we can now have part 2, which is an argument about the environment.
But I just think this virus, for all the loss of life, has been, it's incredible to see. This is like one payback for the environment that people are not. I mean, I'm sure you've been on this. We've all been guilty of traveling every week or two in our world for decades. And there's
absolutely
sitting on your ass and thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Oshini.
So I think what's that?
Oshini, I thought you were going to come down.
Oh, I have to come down now?
Yes, this is my son.
Oh, cool.
He's going to come and say hello to you.
Okay, and then we'll get cut off automatically. Don't take it personally because
I
Instagram
will.
cut us off.
I will take it personally. There's a picture of my mum and dad.
That was a great scene in the movie when you spoke about them.
Yeah, just before they went to prison. Hey, Oshin, are you coming? Ah, okay. Look, this is a man who's an art expert. He knows even more about art than you do.
That's big much. So is he going to get credited in the book as the co-creator?
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah.
Good.
Illustrations by Oshin and Sean Scully.
Fantastic. What does his name mean?
What is what?
What does his name mean?
Oshin.
Yeah.
He was the last great warrior poet of Ireland.
Got you.
Before we were smashed into submission by the naughty English.
I know you're not. I've been called the Trump of the art world too, and I know that you don't ascribe to his racism and prejudicial behavior. I understand that you were saying that just because you're outspoken.